let's kind of flip it the other way. For the person on the bottom, you have to ask yourself, well, how do I break their posture? And it's very simple, or at least it can be simple if you think in these terms. If I look at him this way, what is creating posture? Number one, it's this right here. Number two, it's his head and his back arched and his shoulders are in alignment with his hips, okay? So if I think in terms of what's good for him is this, and this is bad for me automatically. Why is it bad for me? Because it's good for him. There's no middle ground. There's no such position in jiu-jitsu that's okay for him and okay for me, and we're just here, okay? It's either gonna be good for him, which is gonna be bad for me. This is good for him. This is bad for me. This is good for him. This is bad for me. Head up is good for him, bad for me. So how do I change all that? I need to begin to disrupt this grip, because this is one of the three corners that creates posture for him and base, because he's basically like a pyramid. 1, 2, 3. So I have to attack the corners. The easiest corner to attack is this, okay? How do I do that? Is first of all, I force him to use it. And now what I'm doing, I'm pulling him in with my knees right here. It's putting a lot of pressure on here, but it's not a problem for me to take it here, okay? As I'm forced to see how his shoulders are drifting forward, that's becoming good for me and bad for him. He's gonna have to walk his shoulders back over his hips. Now this is good for him and bad for me. But I'm gonna take his post right here and I'm gonna begin to turn it out and move my hips as I begin to break that post. As I turn that, good for me, and now this is bad for him. Because now I put his head to pillow, meaning brought his head down. And I keep repeating the Book of 5 Rings, but if you guys understand that that really is the way of strategy. If you ever heard of Art of War, Sun Tzu, that's one Chinese. The Book of 5 Rings, it's all about strategy. And it's not something that you could just read and like, oh, this is just a great read. No, it's like you study that and you keep studying it, because this is head to pillow, okay? If I turn his head, it's harder for him to reposture. This is good for me. He's got to now turn good for me, okay, into bad for me. Yes, good. So he's posturing up here. And look, all of this reestablished. Good for me. I mean, good for him, bad for me. Now he's applying more pressure on the hip, bad for me. So I'm going to just create more tension here, because here, this is bad for me. I don't have slack. It's like me reeling in a fish, and I'm not actually reeling in the line. And I'm using my legs. See how his body tilted forward? Oh, look, his head dropped down, and it went past that plane. You got to look at your belt as this magical plane. If you get their shoulders, and Master Hickson Gracie teaches that, if you get their shoulders past the plane of your belt, you pretty much own their posture. And what I'm doing is that I'm constantly moving here and using my knees and legs. Look at how my legs go here, okay? Now I have a real good control over him. So this is good for me, bad for him. This is good for me, bad for him. If I do this right here, this is really kind of not good for him, and this is pretty good for me. He's gonna have to turn what's good for me into good for him. So he begins to posture up here, again, posture, look, and I anticipate where he's going, because I know this position, this is where I would go. I'm gonna grab his elbow underneath to see how my head and shoulders, like a windshield wiper, but my guard's still closed as I begin to, again, break him down this way here, as I begin to change the angles here. This is really bad for him right here, okay? So now from here, he's gonna have to begin to turn it into good for him. Yes, look, see, he's posturing here, okay? So you kind of get the idea, but in a slow, kind of conscious way, you begin to understand what is good for them is bad for you. This is good for him, look. Good for him. Bad for him, real good for me here, okay? And all happened off of me removing this post. So what I want you guys to do is just now play with breaking their posture, so that you understand both sides of it here. He gets posture, I'm like, okay, look, I'm here, and look, I reach up. I mean, yes, you still have long arms, but if I grab here, it's not gonna do anything. I need to get his shoulders to dip forward. Look, see how I move my head offline here? Okay, look, and I'm constantly moving. Because in order for this to work, he's gotta realign his pyramid. Move that knee forward. Yes. Now it works. Head up. Yes. Now it works. Look. See how it tilts? Oh. When you begin to understand the concepts of breaking down posture, you're going to be simultaneously understand the concepts of posturing in the guard. So now let's talk about breaking the posture. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And I want you guys to go slowly, methodically, but as if you're doing slow